Welcome back, everybody. You're watching live continuous coverage of the impending arrival of Hurricane Irene to the Delaware and Lehigh Valleys. Once again, this morning it made landfall in North Carolina. We've seen all kinds of damage, video coming out of North Carolina, and that is headed our way, expected to reach our region sometime early tomorrow morning. These are the top developments over the past several hours. Once again, Irene did make landfall in North Carolina. It has weakened to a Category 1, but still a very large, very powerful storm, and it is headed our way. Earlier tracks had it moving off the coastline of New Jersey, but now it looks like it will go into Cape May County. At what speed, at what power, we don't know. What we do know, that it still will be a very large, very powerful and dangerous storm.
Emergency management officials in Cape May County are telling people that if you are not heeding the evacuation order and you're deciding to stay in Cape May County, you are going to be on your own. They say they are not going to risk the lives of first responders to help you if you have made the choice to stay in Cape May County despite the mandatory evacuation orders. They also say if you stay, you should do one thing. You should write down your name, your social security number, and your next of kin on a piece of paper and put it in your shoe. This is how serious they are about this unprecedented storm about to hit our area. 65 million people are expected to be affected by this. In North Carolina, it has already left more than 96,000 people without power. That area is seeing a lot of flooding right now. Again, now Irene heading for our area.
One of the important things, once again, to pass along, and this is so critical, everyone really needs to listen to this. The emergency management officials across the region, not just here, but also North Carolina and up the eastern seaboard, they are saying that there is a window of time when the storm is upon us and they will not dispatch emergency people any longer. That window at this point is beginning to close in our region. If you are under a mandatory evacuation, you have to understand that and realize that when you're in the thickest point of the situation and when you think you may need help, at that point it may be too late because emergency responders will not be available until after the situation clears and they can safely get into the area where you are.
And even if you live in the city of Philadelphia, you need to heed the warnings that if you live in a flood-prone area, Mayor Nutter saying that you should get to higher ground. Also in Philadelphia, you still need to get all of your outdoor furniture, your garbage cans, everything inside or tie it down. You are also going to be affected by this.
Also, to clarify, if you're under any mandatory evacuation order, that does not mean that someone is going to come and arrest you. It's mandatory on paper, but it's still voluntary. You have the right to stay where you are, but we strongly urge you not to do that if you are in a low-lying area. In particular, there are several communities across the region, not just the Jersey Shore, but around here, Darby Borough. Of course, we've done stories all week long. You remember what happened with Hurricane Floyd 12 years ago. One entire community was wiped off the map. I mean, there were homes along that road, I believe it was Chestnut Street, and there are no homes there anymore. They were bought by the government and leveled.
And speaking of Hurricane Floyd, I mean, this is expected to be worse flooding than that because at Hurricane Floyd, they didn't already have so much saturation, whereas this has been the wettest August ever. Even before Hurricane Irene comes to us, 13.5 inches of precipitation this month, so there is no place for the water to go.
So here we stand at 1:11 in the afternoon. We head now over to meteorologist Adam Joseph with the latest situation as far as the storm, where it is, and the impending arrival here in our region.
Yeah, and it's in North Carolina right now, and we keep talking about the track of the storm, and it's going left and it's going right. It's out 30 miles, then it's back inland, back out to sea, back and forth. It does not matter where the center of the storm goes at this point. It is a massive storm. We're talking about winds right now around that center of the storm, 90 miles out on either side of hurricane force winds, which right now are sustained at 85 miles an hour. Outside of that, 290 miles on either side. You have tropical storm force winds, so that is beyond the western part of our viewing area. Storm Tracker 6 live right now, which shows it's been raining all morning, heavy at times down to the south. The areas in Delaware, southern New Jersey have seen already 1, 2, as much as 3 inches of rain, and this is just the beginning of a storm that is going to continue right through tomorrow afternoon. We're taking a look at Atlantic City right now, Absecon, Oceanville. That one little band of heavy rain now pivoting from the southwest to the northeast, pushing into the central part of the Atlantic City Expressway near Egg Harbor, Mays Landing, moving westward toward Hamilton and Lower Bank. At this point, there are some of those tornado watches up, but no tornado warnings. A tornado can spin up at any time because you already have the momentum of the storm spinning in the atmosphere. Reed's Beach right now getting hammered by some heavy torrential rain, maybe even a few gusty winds as these bands pull away from the beach side to the bay side, moving over the Delaware Bay. And as we widen out and take a look into southern Delaware, again, a lot of yellow on this map, meaning some torrential rain, Middletown, Salem, Smyrna. And one thing that we are not seeing, although there are these tornado warnings that every now pop up, We're not seeing any lightning strikes on the radar at this moment, and many times it's in these storms, you don't have so much in the way of thunderstorms, but you just get the momentum of the tornadoes forming because of the spin around these hurricanes moving in that counterclockwise direction. Philadelphia right now, we're just seeing some light rain. Here it is on Storm Tracker 6 3D, just off of Nags Head right here, moving to the north-northeast at about 15 or so miles an hour. So it's a slow-moving hurricane for this mid-latitude, typically 25 to 30 mile per hour sustained directional wind is what it moves in this latitude, but unfortunately it's being caught up by a trough to the west, high to the east, so it can't budge and pull away quickly. We'll take a look right now in our local area. You see those heavy bands moving into southern New Jersey, many more to go down to the south. I want to put on some of the information with the buoys that are just offshore to see where some of these winds are. Let's go right here just north of Nags Head down to the south here, and we will see at that point wave heights around 22 feet. Just to the left there should be a wind buoy, wave height 22 feet there. Also, we have winds here gusting to 56 miles an hour. That is way out to the bay, right on the border of Delaware and also up here towards Maryland. I would like to see some of this. All right, east of the hurricane, we're going down here. Southeast winds 41 miles an hour right now, gusting to 62. There's the center of the storm. Typically, the east side is the stronger side where we see those intense winds, 62 mile an hour range there. Let's go closer to home up here, and we go right on the border of Delaware and also Maryland. See some what's going on here. Winds out of the east-northeast 15, gusting to 22. A little further to the south, winds gusting to 33. So as of right now, we're talking about 15, 20, 30 mile an hour range winds coming into our area. But again, that's only going to increase this afternoon into tonight. I'm going to go over to meteorologist David Murphy. He has much more on the intensity and the track of Irene at the present hour. David?
And Adam, all of the information that you've just given us, very much in keeping with what we expected, and so are these flood watches and other various weather warnings that are in play right now, all making a lot of sense given the story we've been telling you the last several days. Obviously, a flood watch is in effect. This would be today and tomorrow, major widespread flooding. You could see how Adam was showing you those heavy rain bands already developing and pushing in toward Philadelphia. One after another will be continuing in that fashion today, tonight, and in through at least the first part of Sunday. And with the saturated ground already in place from all the recent rain that we've had, a record-setting rainfall month in August, the most rain Philadelphia has ever seen in a 31-day period within a month. That's already saturated the ground. There's nowhere for this extra water to go but right into the creek and stream basins, and from there into the river basins. So we do have issues not only with creeks and streams like we generally would, but we're also going to be keeping a close eye on waterways like the Delaware and the Schuylkill River in particular, which could rise rather quickly. The Delaware probably takes a little bit longer, but as you know, with river flooding, it can last a long time. So anyone who's near a creek or stream or any of those other waterways, you definitely have to be careful and watch, as that water may rise as early as later today, but certainly tonight and tomorrow. We also have a tornado watch. This is in effect from Wilmington down through Millville and Atlantic City and Point South. I could see this being pushed farther up to Philadelphia as we get later in the timetable of the storm. And as Adam mentioned, the turbulence that is created with these strong rain bands and the strong winds related to them can create spin-ups in the atmosphere. Generally speaking, the tornadoes that you find in hurricane rain bands are lighter. They are F0, F1, and F2. But when you consider that around here in our parts of the world, we don't get F1s all that often, and only very rarely an F2. This is certainly significant damage that would be possible from any of these that would form. They tend to be relatively short-lived. That's usually the case with tornadoes around here anyway when we have strong thunderstorms coming through, but that is a possible issue, and that will be an issue not only the rest of today, but perhaps later into the evening as well. For now, this tornado watch is up until 8 p.m. Again, that's very fluid. The timing and placement of this could change depending on how things develop over the next several hours. As we sweep through to the hurricane warning, that is still in effect from areas just south of Trenton through Philadelphia, through Delaware County, my home area, and down in through Wilmington and all the way down to Rehoboth Beach. We called my in-laws who live near Rehoboth last night and said, why don't you come up and spend the night up in Delaware County instead? They did, only to find that there's also a hurricane warning in our neck of the woods as well. Obviously, the farther away from the coast, the better off you are. This is going to be an issue for Saturday and through much of Sunday. And again, Sunday will be rather fluid. We'll wait for those winds to start to drop. We'll wait for the rain to start to subside, but that will be only a gradual improvement through the day on Sunday. Sunday. Right now, Hurricane Irene, as Adam mentioned, is down around North Carolina. The maximum sustained winds currently are at 85 miles per hour, but we do have gusts up closer to 100 currently from the storm. The movement is north-northeast at 15 miles per hour, and for now it's 320 miles south-southwest of Atlantic City and on its way here. Irene's track, it still brings it right past us as a Category 1 hurricane, and it looks like it will maintain that strength. Karen Rogers was on the air recently talking about how oftentimes when hurricanes encounter land, we see some weakening, and while that may happen, it's not encountering all that much land to our south, and there's a lot of water and marshy land mixed in. So as this hurricane continues up toward our direction, we still expect it to be a Category 1, and you can see right here that by Saturday night, just to our south, it could be producing 80-mile-per-hour winds at the center and perhaps 40 or 50 miles out from the center. That again will be a changing situation. Then we expect it to go right up the gut of the Jersey coastline and Delaware coastline as a Category 1, finally getting up to the north of us by 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. Now, after that, it maintains its Category 1 status up into New England. It will not be an issue for us here. At that point, we'll have the winds dying down and the rain will be over. Irene's path, again, more or less 4 a.m. Sunday morning in the wee hours of the morning between Cape May and Avalon, and then getting up closer to Atlantic City a little bit later on Sunday morning and perhaps past. Even as the hurricane is up here, though, we'll still have wraparound precipitation winging its way down from the north, and it will probably be sometime around midday or later that the heaviest rain bands finally push away. That will also be a changing situation, and we encourage you to check back with us. Stick with the Hurricane Tracker on 6abc.com as we go through this storm system's evolution and we look out for any changes. Adam Joseph is back at the big board, and Adam, you've got more on what we can expect the rest of the way.
Yeah, and it depends all on your location and where you are. There was the path that David was showing you, the shore effects. We're talking 6 to 12 inches of rain. We've already gotten a couple of inches. Some of these numbers could go a little higher because that center of the storm coming inland. 70 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts, a storm surge of 3 to 6 feet. That is already adding on top of the new moon with the higher than normal tides. The first tide we're watching is this evening starting 7 o'clock on the beaches, midnight in the bay. Erosion, major flooding expected down the shore. For Philadelphia and the suburbs, 5 to 10 inches of rainfall. River and stream flooding is a definite for pretty much any river, creek, or stream, even the major rivers of the Delaware, the Schuylkill. 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, trees and power lines will be down. And in the Lehigh Valley, we're talking 3 to 6 inches of rainfall, still a healthy amount up there, despite that they're so far away from the center. River stream flooding, 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and even a few trees down out there creating some power outages. And one thing I was just looking at, David was talking about some of the river flooding, and I'm pulling up some of the maps here. This is going to change hour by hour. And if you want and can, zoom in just a little bit to this particular graph here. This is on the National Weather Service site, which is a gauge that shows you where the rivers could potentially go. This particular one here is the Schuylkill River at Norristown. I'm just randomly putting this up here. And as of right now, and again, this is going to change hour by hour as they start to assess some of the water that's being pulled into the waterways. This is the action stage right here, which is at 12 feet. This is for Norristown on the Schuylkill. If you look up here where it's in the pink, it's expected to go into a major flood stage in Norristown on the Schuylkill. That would be just after 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That is in Norristown. If we go to the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia, right now it's expected to go into the moderate stage, which is in the orange right here. Okay, major stage not that far away, expecting 14.2 feet. That would be just after 1 o'clock on Sunday for the Schuylkill in Philadelphia. Yesterday, this showed this in the yellow, today in the orange. More than likely, this could indeed rise or it could fall. This is something the river stage is not a definite at this point because, again, a lot of the rain hasn't even fallen. So this is just a computer trying to input what possibly could fall and what possibly could be the outcome. So we'll be watching those, but again, expect all of the small streams, small rivers, the larger rivers to go into flood starting late tonight, during the day tomorrow, and into the day on Monday. I'm going to be looking at more of this, Nydia and Walter. We'll go back over to you, assess some of this, and we'll be back more with that full AccuWeather forecast.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Talk to you in a bit.
We should also mention this probably comes as no surprise to you, but the first game of that Phillies doubleheader, originally scheduled for 1 o'clock today, has now been canceled. No word, though, on when it will be played.
No surprise indeed.
Yeah.
Well, further proof that sightseeing during severe weather, not a good idea. 8 people were injured after they were knocked off a jetty in Boynton Beach, Florida. The group had gathered to watch the effects of Hurricane Irene come in when a wave crashed down on them. Seconds later, another wave. Another scrambled to help, not knowing if another round was coming. None of the injuries we're talking about was considered serious, fortunately for them.
You know, bad weather is like a beck and call for surfers. Despite warnings to stay out of the water, several people rode Irene's waves off Folly Beach in South Carolina. The double red flags were also ignored in Ocean City, Maryland. Surfers there risked powerful rip currents to get a shot at the storm swells.
Also, a reminder, this afternoon you can go to 6abc.com and 6ABC to get constant updates on evacuations and shelters. They're easily available on your computer, your smartphone, or your iPad. We'll be right back. 25 Saturday afternoon. We're taking a picture right here of Virginia Beach, Virginia. You can see the tides swelling up down there. This is once again a harbinger of things to come to our region, folks. The wind really kicking up. The storm remains right now over North Carolina. That's where it made landfall earlier this morning, moving north in our direction at approximately 15 miles per hour. The category has been shifted downward to 1, but still a very large, very dangerous storm. Once again, this is a live picture out of Virginia Beach, Virginia.
You know, I've covered a lot of hurricanes, Hurricane Katrina, Ivan, and Gustav, and it's really odd to cover a hurricane right here at home.
And it's something that's very unusual, no doubt about it. I mean, you talk about the effects of hurricanes in the past. Those will likely, pale in comparison to what's going to happen over the next 24 hours.
Sure, the last one, Floyd, in September of '99, and we're expecting the flooding in this case to be so much worse. Truly an unprecedented storm, this Hurricane Irene. Now, we want to take you someplace new, to Seaside Heights. Nora Mushanek has a look at conditions there.
In Seaside Heights right now in Ocean County, the rain has begun. You can see that they've boarded up the buildings, the beach bar here. All of the windows are covered, and that's smart. We are getting reports right now because this entire area and all the way south had to be evacuated. Busloads of people have been brought here. I talked to the Toms River police chief, who told me that last night at their shelter, 3 busloads of people from Wildwood arrived. Many of them workers who were seasonal workers who work in town during the summer. They had to reroute them up to the Sunbank Arena up in Trenton because they simply didn't have room. Right now they're telling us that Toms River High School North is filled. That shelter has over 250 people in it, can't handle anymore, so they are opening other shelters. High School East, Intermediate North, work in town during the summer. They had to reroute them up to the Sunbank Arena up in Trenton because they simply didn't have room. Right now they're telling us that Toms River High School North is filled. That shelter has over 250 people in it, can't handle anymore, so they are opening other shelters. High School East, Intermediate North. It looks like there's going to be a lot of people who are looking for a place to go, and right now they're trying to find a place for everyone. Reporting from Seaside Heights, I'm Nora Mushanek, Channel 6 Action News.
All right, thank you, Nora.
Hurricane Irene is forcing SEPTA to suspend service for the first time in its history. Runs will end at 12:30 a.m. tomorrow morning on all bus, trolley, high-speed subway routes and the regional rails. Service may return late noon Sunday, but that's at the earliest. SEPTA will make a final call on that after examining the tracks for possible storm-related damage.
Also this afternoon, Amtrak will be offering reduced service as of 5 o'clock this evening. The Northeast Corridor and Keystone Corridor lines will be among those canceled until after Irene clears out. That means some SEPTA regional rails will stop running at 5 p.m. Amtrak passengers who paid for tickets on canceled trips can either get a refund or rebook.
And New Jersey Transit has suspended its rail, light rail, bus, and Access Link paratransit service because of Irene. They were expecting to shut down the rail lines at noon today.
Much more to come on Action News on a Saturday afternoon. We're, of course, continuing our live coverage of the impending arrival of Hurricane Irene to the Delaware and Lehigh Valleys. Much more coming up in just a moment. Please stick around. Welcome back, everybody. It's 1:31. It is Saturday afternoon. Once again, that ticker right there, Storm Tracker 6, giving us a live look at the progress of Hurricane Irene as it makes its way up the eastern seaboard. As you can see, the cloud cover has already arrived. This is the outer band or an outer portion of the storm, a precursor of things to come. It's expected to make landfall in New Jersey sometime very early tomorrow morning.
Let's go back now to Adam Joseph at the big board, and you've been tracking this all morning long.
Yes, and I want to just state that, yes, this is a hurricane coming up the coast, Category 1, winds of around 85 miles per hour. As it comes up the coast, it's moving very slowly, so the number one threat for us here is the flooding, both inland flooding and coastal flooding. The second would be the winds with the power outages and the trees down. And another outcome, unfortunately, with tropical systems that make landfall, there is the possibility of some isolated tornadoes or tornado watches up for the southern part of our viewing area throughout this evening. Storm Tracker 6 Live right now will show that the northern part of the rain is in southern Montgomery County, Chester County, Lancaster County. Right now, very light green, so lighter rains. As we go down to the south, we can see that there are some pretty bold yellows, oranges, and even some reds that are now popping up. Millville, Salem, Smyrna, Dover, Milford, around Sea Isle City. All of these are pivoting in from the southwest to the north at west. We'll zoom in a little bit closer to some of these heavier areas, especially around Dover, Fortescue, right over the bay. And where you're seeing these moving in from that southwest to the northeast, here is the outline of the bay. The wind's already moving in that direction, so it's already piling up the water into the bay and then eventually into the Delaware River. And that's the trajectory of the winds and the flow around the storm throughout this afternoon and this evening. And that's why we're worried about that storm surge with all that water being pushed up this very narrow waterway. Smyrna right now, heavy rainfall. Not seeing any lightning right now, so no thunderstorms. And the thunderstorms are typically very minimal when you're talking around a tropical system. But why do you get tornadoes but no thunderstorms? Well, there's this natural spin, and it's so intense around a hurricane and tropical entity that these storms already have a natural spin to them, so tornadoes can drop out at any given moment. But that's the radar filling in right now down to our south. We'll bring in Storm Tracker 6 3D live here, and we can also put some information on this as well with what is going on in respect not only in our area, but areas to the south where they're closer to the center of the storm. All right, first start off near the bay, near Delaware, near New Jersey, see what's going on with some of the waves and the wind. Right now, wind out of the east 29 miles an hour, gusting to 40 miles an hour. Just down to the south, let's say the tip of Maryland and just off of Virginia, we're talking of gusts to 29 miles an hour with an east-northeasterly wind. The center of the storm is way down here near Nags Head. We've got gusts to 40 right now in the bay, just south and east of Virginia. And as we go a little bit closer to the actual center of the storm, we're seeing gusts right now 60 miles an hour to the north and east of what is the center of the storm near the eye. And again, this is slowly drifting off to the north. Maybe we could take off the buoys. Let's put on some of the wave heights. Let's see what's going on with the structure of the storm, with the ocean, with these waves being welled up. There you can see all this purple, and as this goes into motion, you see that purple is moving in our direction. Here is the southern part of our coastline of New Jersey. Here is Delaware. Right now we're at 8-foot waves in New Jersey. We're coming in near 10-foot waves off of Delaware, just down to the south, 13-foot waves. And then when you go closer to the heart of the storm near Nags Head, 21 feet, 28 feet. And all of this water and wave is moving in our direction. There's a 32-foot swell. So that is why we're talking about the massive swells and also that coastal flooding with the times of high tide this evening, 7 o'clock. And then again, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning as the storm passes by our area. I'm going to go over meteorologist David Murphy. He is at our weather wall. More information on Future Tracker 6 because this rain intensity is actually going to get worse this evening, David.
Yeah, Adam, you've been talking about this and doing a good job of reiterating the fact that we are only in the very beginning of this, even though we are seeing some heavier bands. Now, Adam's shown you what's going on out there right now. Some decent rain down through South Jersey, some lighter rain in through Philadelphia. By 4 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be looking at another heavy band coming in from the south. And as we go through the evolution of this storm in through the evening hours and especially overnight tonight, you're going to see heavier bands welling up and then repeating one after another, coming in from the ocean and winding up in the northern west suburbs. By 7 o'clock tonight, we think it could be fairly decent rainfall right around Philadelphia. Then as we get later into the nighttime period, by 10 o'clock, we start to see some evidence of some heavier rain. Future Tracker showing us some of that orange and red. This would be a band where I would suspect we would perhaps see perhaps a thunderstorm popping up, or as Adam mentioned, the potential for a tornado here or there. They tend to be short-lived and on the weaker side in these hurricane bands, but they can still be strong enough to do some damage in addition to the sustained hurricane force and tropical storm force winds that we're looking at. It's really in the overnight hours where we're expecting the heaviest downpours, the heaviest rain. We'll already see flooding later on tonight because of the rain coming in all day today, but by the wee hours of the morning, you see a lot more coverage with the darker shades of green and yellow, and this really heavy rain pushing in from the south. And then we get into about 5 a.m., I'll see you on the air then, by the way. We're really going to be inundated with heavy rain, heavy downpours in through Millville, Atlantic City, and perhaps some more of those thunderstorms or those tornadoes spinning up. And even up into Philadelphia and points north and west by the wee hours of the morning and a couple of hours before dawn, we could see the heavier downpour, flood-producing rain. Not that there isn't going to be flooding just about everywhere, but it could be especially intense as we get into about the 5 a.m. period. Then we go from 5 up to 9:30. This heaviest rain band appears to be pushing perhaps away from the shore a bit, but really inundating areas up here to the north. And this is an issue for flooding because once you start getting these heavier rain bands into the upper portions of our creek, stream, and river basins, that's all this water up to the north that still has to flow through all those channels, getting into the Schuylkill, getting into the Delaware, getting into our major waterways. And that's why we say that as we get farther into this storm system, not only will the creeks and streams start to rise, but eventually the rivers as well, and it'll get especially intense once the heaviest rain is in the upper river and creek basins in the northern portion of the region. Now, by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, we expect the center of the storm to be well up to the north, and we're going to be getting the wraparound rain bands at that point. The wind will change direction. It won't be so much in off the coast, but we still may be seeing some inundating rainfall. Finally, by about 2 to 3 o'clock or so, we expect that heavier rain to be up in New York State, away from us. We'll still be dealing with likely some lighter showers, but it will not be as bad as it was. And by about 6 o'clock tomorrow night, the rain will be totally over, probably before then, in fact. Obviously, there's a flood watch today and tomorrow with widespread major flooding possible along all of our creeks and streams and eventually the rivers as well. A tornado watch is also in effect. I had to mention how there's the possibility of some strong but fairly volatile tornadoes popping up in those rain bands. What we usually see is a Category 0, a Category an F0, an F1, or an F2 tornado in these outer rain bands. They tend not to last all that long, but on top of everything else going on out there, this can obviously be an additional problem that you may have to watch out for. Right now, it's up until 8 o'clock. That's fluid. We also have a hurricane warning in effect. Obviously, this continues up through Philadelphia and Delaware County and points south with hurricane force winds possible today and for at least part of tomorrow. Tropical storm force winds farther to the north, and Hurricane Irene right now producing 85 mile per hour winds, but moving at 15 miles per hour through North Carolina, and then eventually passing our coastline during the day tomorrow and into early Sunday morning. And I've just got that one more close-up view to show you that about 3 in the morning is now when we think this is going to be off the coast of Cape May and Avalon. By about 7 in the morning, the storm will be past Atlantic City and North Jersey, but we still have that wraparound precipitation. Adam Joseph is back at the big board.
And David, you're talking of that track coming right over our area, and it doesn't matter whether it is right over us or if it's out to sea. This storm is massive in size, so this is the effects that we're expecting at the shore. 6 to 12 inches of rainfall. Some areas could be a little higher than that since the center of the storm is pushing inland. 70 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts. That storm surge 3 to 6 feet. 3 to 6 feet doesn't sound like a lot. It's huge. Erosion, major flooding along the shore, Philly and the suburbs, 5 to 10 inches of rainfall, river and stream flooding, 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, many trees. Power lines will come down, and the Lehigh Valley, 3 to 6 inches, healthy amount of rain there. River stream flooding, 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and even a few trees down in those locations. Just a short time ago, I was showing you some of the information on the National Weather Service site when we're talking about some of the rivers and streams in our area. This is our major concern with this storm. I picked out one of the major places that could see some major flooding. This is the north branch of the Rancocas Creek at Pemberton in New Jersey. Right now, we are sitting at a level of 1.96 feet. It is expected to rise in less than 24 hours to 4.6 feet, which is a major stage right here over the purple. Not a record stage, but still a major stage right now at the Pemberton tomorrow afternoon. I'll bring in this one here. This is the Delaware River at Regalsville. Right now we're sitting at 6 feet, and look at that sharp jump that goes up. And this is going to change only because it's trying to assess what it's predicting how much water is going to go into the river. But until we get into the thick of the storm, it can't compute exactly what may happen. But we're jumping from 6 feet to 27 feet in a, let's see, that's a 24-hour time span. That'd be 1 p.m. tomorrow, going into major flood at Regalsville. Right now, not showing major stage. And let's bring in one more here. This would be the Schuylkill at Philadelphia, going to moderate stage. We're at 6 feet right now. Then again, jumping from 1 p.m. Saturday at 6 feet to about 1 p.m. Sunday, 24 hours, to 14.2 feet. The record stage is 17 14 feet in Philadelphia. That's the record, so only 3 feet from the record stage in Philadelphia. This is a combination of all the water coming down the river, but also all of that water being pushed up the Delaware Bay into the Delaware River, into Philadelphia, backing up the Schuylkill. So a lot of things are going on here that we'll have to continue to watch. And in fact, this is actually a pretty impressive storm when you're talking about a hurricane, only because we only have had 3 hurricanes in our lifetime in history. I'm going to bring this back up here right now. There's so much going on here, but we got it for you. There's the storm here. This is only the 3rd storm to threaten the mid-Atlantic coastline in New Jersey and Delaware in our lifetime. If this center of the storm, Nydia and Walter, does make landfall anywhere near Wild, I'm being told I'm going to go to Melissa McGee, meteorologist Melissa McGee. Melissa, we put you outside, so you've got the rain gear on. Poor Melissa. The girl with all the hair, she had to be outside. What's going on out there right now, Melissa?
Well, Adam, one thing that you did mention is that the center of the hurricane is still well to the south of our region. It's out through the center of North Carolina, so we're talking about a good 320 miles south and west of Atlantic City, and we're already starting to pick up some of those outer rain bands, those feeder bands working their way into our region. So it does give you an indication as to how large and how massive this storm is right now. I do have my anemometer outside, and this is essentially a wind gauge. It helps you track the current wind speeds outside. They are fairly light in consideration as you take a look at the storm system, and as it works its way up the coast, the winds and the rain will only intensify as they move closer to Philadelphia and the Jersey shoreline. So of course, conditions not terribly bad outside right now, but of course those will change as we get closer to later on this evening into tonight during the overnight hours and for you first thing tomorrow morning, as well as we continue to track the storm system. Another thing to keep in mind is that we have been saying the month of August has been the wettest month ever in Philadelphia's history. We've picked up 13.61 inches of rain. The rain is already and the ground is already saturated. So keep in mind when Adam's talking about 5 to 10 inches of rainfall here for Philadelphia, David Murphy tells you down the shore we could get anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of rain. That rain is moving into an area that's already saturated. So that's going to lead to a lot of problems across the region. We're talking about trees being knocked down, wires being knocked down, and possible power outages as well. So of course this is a storm that we will continue to track, especially as it gets closer to our region. The rain is only going to intensify, and it is on the western side of that storm where you will pick up the heaviest of that rainfall. So of course this is something we're going to be tracking for you all day. Not terrible outside right now, but we are expecting conditions to deteriorate as the afternoon and the evening progresses. I'm going to send it back inside to you guys.
All right, Melissa, thanks so much. We want to take a live picture now of the Center City skyline. Once again, Mayor Nutter has not issued a mandatory evacuation order for the city, but he is warning that if you live in a low-lying, flood-prone area, you want to get to higher ground. Stay at a family member's house, a neighbor, or a friend's house. You also want to make sure, if you need to, that you are aware of where those shelter locations are. The city will open a number of shelters at 6 p.m. today. We have all the information on 6abc.com. And you know, one of the things that makes Irene so unusual is the fact that it is hitting so many big cities: Baltimore, D.C., Philadelphia, and then New York City. We took a live news conference with Mayor Michael Bloomberg earlier today. He was urging the 370,000 some residents in those low-lying areas in Manhattan to evacuate immediately. They've been under that mandatory evacuation order, and Mayor Michael Bloomberg was saying that mass transit out of Manhattan was shutting down at noon, and the bridges were expected to close, so there would be no way out off and off the island if people didn't leave right away.
Also, meantime, around our area, for the first time ever, SEPTA plans to suspend all service in Philadelphia and in the suburbs starting after midnight this evening at about 12:30 and on until noon Sunday at the very earliest. Now, several regional rails that get power from Amtrak are scheduled to shut down at 5 o'clock this evening. That's information we had a couple of hours ago. If that changes, we'll certainly let you know. That, of course, includes the Chestnut Hill West Line, the Paoli Line, the Airport Line, along with the Trenton and Wilmington lines as well. Also this afternoon, the city is stepping up efforts to get the homeless off the streets as early as possible. According to a published report, Sister Mary Sullivan, co-founder of Project Home, she says the public buildings and shelters will have an open door policy. And one final note to pass along, the 3 local universities, Temple, St. Joseph's, and Holy Family, they have, of course, rescheduled their move-ins and orientation for incoming freshmen. It was scheduled for this weekend. If you want to find out when it's been rescheduled for, just check out your individual schools' websites.
We'll be right back with continuing coverage of Hurricane Irene.